Time being 7 o'clock, I'll call a Monday, February 22nd, 2021 meeting of the Oxford Planning Board to order. I'll first read the remote meeting notice pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order concerning imposition on strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. Meetings in the town of Oxford will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. We strive to provide access to such meetings via a link to call in and other similar options. In the event we are unable to accommodate the same, despite best efforts, we will post recorded sessions of the meeting as soon as possible following the same. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings. And we'll do a roll call of members of the board. I'm Richard Escolas. I'm a member. Norman
LeBlanc, present.
Jeff
Stafford, present.
Craig
Goldberg, present.
Christine
Bird, present.
Okay, and Roger
McCarthy, present.
Okay, there being a quorum, we can open the meeting. On our agenda at 7, we had plans not requiring subdivision approval. We have none. No action items. I'll go to old business, and I want to thank Mary for what?
So I emailed you Friday a new agenda that has action items on it.
Uh-oh.
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 I don't think I got it either.
I didn't get it.
Oh, I thought it was attached. I thought I emailed it when I sent out the
remote
invite.
thing? You might have sent it out when you did the remote. Okay, let's go under action items then. What do you have on there, Mary?
So I've got vote to request Board of Selectmen consider articles on the warrant for the May 5th, 2021 annual town meeting.
Oh, yeah.
We haven't discussed that yet.
I know, but we want to get it to the selectmen to ask them to put it on the warrant.
Yeah.
So we can.
We're going to talk about it and determine which ones.
Okay. All right. So we can wait.
Why don't we put that off? We'll come back to that.
Okay. All right.
And what else did you have?
I believe that was it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I want to recognize the fine write-up you did for the town report. Thank you very much on writing that
You're
up.
welcome.
The other thing you did send us was the from the previous town meeting. We had the Attorney General finally approved the warrant Article 17 zoning and the warrant Article 5 general for the solar energy systems, ground mounted solar energy systems. The Attorney General went through it with a fine tooth comb and found multiple areas where if you were ever questioned by proponents, there's no loss supporting the positions we took. Is that right, Mary, Tony?
That's what it sounded like to me.
She said you may have some trouble justifying it in the long run.
Right, but there's no case law.
In the meantime, we've heard horror stories from other towns. We put together what we thought was the best for our town, and I guess we'll take it as it comes. Anyone else have any comments on that?
Good.
Okay, those were the things I wanted to bring up. That wasn't on the agenda per se. Is the applicant going to be here for that submission, Mary?
No, no, strictly a submission.
Okay, we have one submission. It's Stafford Street, map 01, parcel A03.01. Applications for a special permit for the use because it's not specified under the general business district on what they intend to do. Site plan approval, stormwater management permit, and land disturbance permit. Applicant and owner, Hydro Cutter Incorporated, for construction of self-storage facility with associated parking, drainage, and stormwater management. Everyone received that in their package.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may as
Yes.
well, we will be following up with the applicant to get additional information. For example, with respect to building height, to get an understanding what the situation is regarding building height. As we know, the maximum height is 25 feet. They make note provided is less than 50 feet. So we want to get an understanding exactly what the building height will be for each of the buildings. Likewise, exactly what the exterior would look like, whether these are traditional separate garage doors or if there's only one entrance or two entrances leading in and out, just so we have an understanding of that. So well, we're going to ask them to note that in the site plan. Likewise, parking, understanding their parking calculation. They're showing 3 parking spaces. So we want to get more detail on that also. Absent of whether the board schedules this, certainly the board wishes to schedule for a public hearing in the near future, well and good. We do anticipate the applicant to provide us this additional information for the board to review for the public hearing prior to the
Well,
public hearing.
I'm kind of thinking a public hearing would be needed just to, we're in charge of stormwater management. Are they going to conservation?
Believe
No.
they- No, they're not. I believe they went to
Okay, so well,
Concom.
since we're doing it under stormwater management, we're gonna have a public hearing anyway, so that could incorporate the site plan. I'm kind of concerned. This is a deviation of what those sites have been used for, and there's residents that are basically all around them on Stafford Street. So we got, it's not just general business, or some of them are residential properties within the general business too, so. I think we're going to end up having a public hearing on the stormwater management anyway, so
And the special permit.
special permit, yeah. And I don't know how badly it is to take that the 3 buildings they have down in the gully where people got to drive down to. They don't plan on doing any paving down there. I don't know what kind of we got to, if those are public accessible buildings for renters, we got to make sure that those accesses are safe.
Adequate, safe, right.
You know,
So I'd
they're
like,
saying gravel. I mean, if it was their own storage facilities for their ongoing business, that's another thing.
yeah,
But it almost sounded like to me that it's going to be a self-storage facility
Right.
along with their office on the top, in
It
the top
is.
building.
And only 3 parking spaces for self-storage doesn't really add up either.
right.
Well, most
Yeah,
people go inside and go to the garages and
But
deal with their stuff. You know what I mean?
if you have 50 self-storage things and you only have 3 parking spaces and 10 people show up,
They claim the parking is only for the office.
no,
Rich.
Anyway, there's lots of
about a
things
year
to
or so
discuss.
ago, they came before tech review, and there were some questions that the fire department had too as well.
Yeah, I'm sure there will be.
Accessibility and stuff, so I agree with you. We should have a public hearing and, and get some of these things ironed out.
Okay.
And
Well,
we'll
everything else was
we're probably gonna send it out for third-party review for
Okay.
stormwater and zoning compliance.
All right. Well, I'll entertain a motion to,
Just one more question,
Yep.
Rich.
Yep.
Before we even, have a public hearing, can we get more information on what the, proposed purpose actually is? Because I was unclear on that too. I mean, it looks like when they said general storage, and I know Hydro Cutter, I think manufactures plows, like.
Plows and that. I thought it was for
So
steel
I thought it was
storage.
that until I saw at the end and it said something about renters. So
Right.
now I'm thinking, is it self-storage? And I had the same question Jeff did about, limited parking. So I don't know. I think it would be good to get some clarification on that ahead of any public hearing.
Yeah, because on the application, it says proposed storage facility, but on the submission, it says self-storage facility. So two different terminologies there.
When they came to tech review, they told us it was for self-storage.
Okay.
Well, either way, this thing will be started as a public hearing, and we're not going to have anything from a third-party review because we haven't asked them for third-party review stuff yet.
I did discuss it with the engineer, with Carl Holtgren at Quinn
Yeah.
Engineering.
Usually Quinn Engineering shows up with their submission. That's why I asked if we were early or something and they were going to come a little later.
No, I guess I didn't think he really needed to be here because it's just going in as a submission.
Is there any reason why we can't just wait until we have the third-party review before we do a public hearing?
Well, what we're hoping to do is schedule the public hearing for March 29th, 22nd.
A month out.
March
month out.
22nd, a month out.
Is that typically enough time?
Well, that's the time I need for advertising. And in the meantime, we would get it over to Graves to request a review. They may or may not have their review in time for the 22nd. We could go out to April 12th if.
Typically, what we've been doing is we get a plan like this, because I looked at the parking too. But typically what we do is we look at the plan, we make sure that all the taxes are paid, we make sure it's on the right size paper, we make sure that, we determine that it needs a public hearing. We accept the plan and we schedule a public hearing because Mary's got to send out notices, so it's going to be a month. We have a public hearing and then all the questions that we've already asked, like the parking, like the height, things that they need to make, that we feel they need to make changes on the plan, that'll all come up in the public hearing. This is not going to be one meeting. I can tell you right now, we're going to have several meetings. So what we're looking to do now is take this plan and start the process and ask the questions. Three of us have already mentioned we have an issue about the parking. There's something about the height of the building. We're going to need input from the fire department. In the meantime, if we don't get that third-party review, then we're going to continue it to another meeting. And some of the questions that we have or the changes we ask them to make, they can make. So like I say, this could probably take 2 or 3 meetings. Usually a project this size, does take this time. Rich has got some questions about, what about the other property there? What kind of access are they going to have? So I think what we're looking to do, guys, is to start the public hearing. We have enough information to start it. They met the requirements that they need. As I say, the taxes are paid and all that other good stuff. We schedule the public hearing and we just start the process. Am I correct, Rich? And
Yeah. No, I agree with you, Norman. Did they pay for anything, Mary, yet? You get a check for anything to advertise or whatnot?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, nothing states on my things that you received any check. I do agree that the taxes have been paid. There's no encumbrance in our system for starting this process.
Taxes have been paid. I have a check for $200 for the special permit, check for $100 for the site plan, and a check for $250 for the stormwater management and land disturbance. So, yes, these are.
Mary, how does this go to the town of Leicester? Because this is right on the town line.
I have an abutters list from the town of Leicester.
Okay. Anyway, yeah, I agree. We just accept it. And I think, Mary, that you can pursue with the engineer to get a quotation from Graves, whatever, based upon this plan
I
we
have
got.
everything sent to me from Quinn on PDF. I'll get that
Okay.
out to Graves Engineering and request.
And
that
get a
he
check if
provide
they can get a
work
review done prior to our public hearing. That's great.
Yeah,
In the meantime, yeah, we got all these questions. We obviously know there's a few issues with this plan, and the
Mhm.
fire department's gonna have some more issues, I think.
Yeah. Yep.
And
And Craig, if
We'll
you
go
have
from
any
there.
concerns, we can always request an extension for the time for the board to act.
okay, entertain a motion to approve this submission and schedule a public hearing for March
March
22nd at
7:05.
7:05 PM.
I'll make that a motion.
Second.
Seconded by Roger. Further discussion? There being none, all those voting in favor, roll call. I say aye. Norman?
Norman says yes.
Okay. Jeff?
Jeff says yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Christine?
Yes.
And Roger?
Aye.
Carried unanimously. Okay, getting to the planning director report. And it's been busy printing out stuff. I printed out some stuff today and I was looking at them. And go ahead and do
Sure.
them one at a time, Tony. And we'll discuss them one at a time and vote whether we want, if we think we'll be prepared for this warrant.
Sure. So in no particular order, Village Business District parking amendment to our amendment to Chapter 11, and 3 sections, one pertaining to on-street parking offset. So as discussed at the last meeting, to allow applicants, property owners to use their on-street parking as an offset to required off-street parking, specific for non-residential uses. The following section is regarding bicycle parking. This is just a sample that I put in, and certainly, if we wish to move this forward, we can obviously make tweaks, adjustments to any of this language, but did put in for all non-residential uses, bicycle parking be counted towards off-street vehicle parking requirements at a ratio of 1 bike space for every 5 vehicle parking spaces. There are different communities have different ratio standards for this, but this is not necessarily the best one, but it's certainly a placeholder if we wish to make changes. And then the last section is simply waivers that the planning board may waive strict compliance with any requirement of this chapter. The waiver will not adversely affect public safety and will equally or better serve the purpose of the bylaw and town master plan. And by process, how the waiver is to be submitted, and that it should be done, waiver requests should be discussed and voted on public hearing. And if the planning board needs additional time to review the waiver request, the board may continue the hearing. And if the applicant fails to provide any of the requested information, the board may waive the request of waiver, and that any waiver shall require a majority vote of the entire board. For Village Business District, I met with our town engineer, DPW director, just discussing about a village business corridor and where exactly we're looking at with respect to where State Highway ends and starts. Village Business District runs kind of, or at least from Front Street to I believe it's Hometown Liquors.
Clover Street.
Sorry?
Clover Street.
Clover, thank you. Some of the spaces or some of the sections of the corridor are already signed no parking for various reasons. Certainly we know down by the park where the crosswalks are, there are sections there where there is no parking. We do note in here that these are for legal on-street parking spaces. So, and that any unmarked on-street parking spaces be calculated, unlined parking space be calculated at a length of 20 feet per space, provided that there's no obstructions or impediments, and that'd be 20 feet away from all curb cuts, street corners, and crosswalks. So again, this can certainly be changed, but this is the areas that we're looking to work on. So that's the first one, Mr. Chairman.
Tony, just maybe I got this wrong, but You said it's one bike to every 5 car parking spaces?
Yes.
Shouldn't it be the opposite? Shouldn't it be like 5 bikes to a 1 car? I mean, can't you put a lot more bikes in a car parking space and vice versa? Am I misunderstanding that? You're only allowing 1 bike to 5 parking spaces?
Yeah. So just basically, in essence, someone would be required to install a bike rack to accommodate at least one bicycle for every 5 vehicle parking spaces, something to that effect.
Yeah.
That might not be clear.
I almost want to see it the other way around, saying you could have 5 bikes. I mean, a bike rack can hold 20 bikes in a car parking space.
Mm-hmm.
You following me there? Or
I am. I can come up with a few different examples as well that we may be comfortable with.
Okay.
Rich, could I give my 2 cents?
Go ahead, Norman.
Because I can tell you what we've talked about at the master plan.
Yep.
And I think Rich brought this up last week. Maybe we should deal with the bike parking when we do the overall downtown plan. To be honest with you, I really don't see a need for that right now.
Right, I agree.
We're probably going to only change it once we do the final plan. I think the big issue was, and I don't know if the board members are aware of this, but there's a building across the street that someone wants to put a small store in. And right now, because the 2 years have passed as far as the use, they can't put a business in that building because of the way our parking bylaw is. Okay, so this change in the bylaw, what Tony has worked hard on and done a good job on, will allow us to open that business. And I have a couple of comments, Tony. I like the fact that you put a waiver at the end because it gives us flexibility as a board. Not every situation is the same, and we have no flexibility right now. So I think that's excellent. The other thing is, though, I think we need to let all the other business people know that this parking is still available to them. This is not parking specifically for this business. It's still going to be first come, first serve. What we're saying, though, in the overall count of all our businesses, that this particular business can have 3 or 4 spaces. And I think it's important to let the other people know that as well. And for example, if we give a special permit to this person or someone else, we might say that you can't, your help has to park across the street in the big parking lot. Because we don't want someone parked there all day that works there, because that's not the purpose of that space. So again, I don't think that has to be written in a bylaw, but I think with the flexibility that you've given us, we can put that in as a condition. So I think it is going to help us out in this particular case. So that's my 2 cents worth. Rich, I hope I'm not putting words in your mouth, but if that's what you said last week, I agree. I don't think we need to handle the bike thing right now. Was I right, Rich? Did I?
No, I'm right. The one thing I don't see throughout this whole thing is who's going to mark these parking spaces. It's okay that we specify what they are as far as size, but people being people, they're going to park 50 feet away from each other, and on the side of the road and take up maybe go in front of 2 or 3 houses on Main Street.
Tony, you gave us a good explanation to that on the master plan, so maybe you can pass that on to Rich about the breakdown lane or that white line being 20 feet.
Yeah. So and this was my conversation with Jared to get some clarity.
Yeah.
So the what we would call the breakdown lane, right? The portion of where it's not state highway, cars, unless it's signed otherwise, cars can park here in the center of the village business district. And now we know in the future spaces are to be marked when Main Street is done over. But certainly in the interim, not all the spaces will be marked or lined. So we put that reference of a length of 20 feet per space on unmarked on-street parking spaces, which is most of not all, but most of the corridor. We put the line of that legal on-street parking spaces because not all areas allow for parking, and we know that, and that might change as well in the future. So we know in certain areas, particularly where the crosswalks are, that there are some areas that are marked off no parking. particularly by the park, right? So so this gives us some thinking. This gives us some flexibility with respect to the situation of parking in the front. In the future, there could be, again, there could be restrictions there. Who knows? There, prior to the Main Street redo, there could be sections where there's signage for the bus drop-off, let's say, or a resident needs a handicap parking space in front, perhaps. So trying to give us a little flexibility with this.
Temporarily, right? I mean, it's till we get the new plan.
Correct, correct.
Okay. What were you proposing, Tony? Create another chapter or just amend the chapter we have?
So Mary and I looked at this closely, and the way we place this right now is to amend chapter 11. And so these would be added. So if we're going to strike out bicycle parking, we would add 2 new sections to chapter 11 at the end of chapter 11.
Okay.
And that's my suggestion about the bicycle parking, Tony. I'd be interested to see what the rest of the board feels. I mean, if the rest of the board feels we should put it in now, then that's fine. But
No, I
No,
don't think
someone's got to supply the racks. I mean, bicycle
Yeah.
parking means nothing without racks.
and I don't think, I agree with you, Norm. It doesn't have to be done right away.
No. Most people will ride their bike right up to the building.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
paint it to the
The
door.
sidewalk right to the building.
I just don't want to see anything that's in there that doesn't make sense to me. And right now, 1 bike space to 5 car just doesn't make sense to me. But if
You know,
that-
if you redo Main Street to have a bike path right on it, then yeah, it makes sense to have racks
Right.
here and there, especially near the park and that. You know, I agree with that, you know, but
This came out of tech review regarding Main Street. There are
Yeah.
other things they're trying to do to have a positive impact immediately. You know, like better lighting and stuff like that, better crosswalks. But long-term, you know, these changes would be made.
That's fine. Yeah.
Hey, Rich, can I ask, Norman, what business are you talking about that wants to open up but doesn't have any parking?
The, where the tavern used to be.
Oh,
yeah,
And
there's a
that's a
whole
whole
group of
different-
buildings along that side there that
Yeah.
they don't have parking except
And
if
you know,
they,
you could get into a whole mess with that because when we were on the ZBA, we had a situation similar to this, okay? And the way the law read back then is that the applicant or the owner has to show the intent to abandon the building. So if this person got a lawyer, he might be able to fight this because that goes into a whole new legal thing. You know, what establishes intent? Like if they were paying their taxes and insuring the building and doing repairs, probably weren't showing an intent to get rid of it. So, and Tony, I don't know if the law has changed, but that was the way it was back then. So we don't want to go down that road.
Yeah.
Of doing what we're doing, you know, I mean, there's another building, actually, there's 2 other buildings, the bank, the brick bank. You know, that's not inhabited right now. And if 2 years go by, there's definitely not enough parking for that facility. Further down, someone bought the place next to Oxford Insurance, they're rehabbing the whole building. But again, it looks like there might be enough parking in the back for residents.
Yeah.
Again, they're not into the thing where they haven't abandoned it for 2 years, but
well, we've had requests before to, if they could use on-street parking
absolutely.
for their parking.
And we've been talking about
Requirements.
this, Rich, for
It's been brought up
It is,
before. I know
yeah.
that. I don't
Okay.
I don't mind putting this into the current bylaw. My only concern is if you don't delineate what those parking places are, they're gonna, well, who cares? I guess as long as it's on the right side of the breakdown lane, right?
In front of Oxford Insurance, they have that interesting little pull out there. That's one of the only places on Main Street where there's a little cutout.
Call it a bump out.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah,
Right.
The new plan might have all bump outs. We don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
a lot of bump outs actually. Yeah,
Really?
yeah.
Which will make it safer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not for the snowplow drivers.
Yeah.
We're not. No, that's not. There are a lot of people out there with shovels. All right, thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
I think this one's doable. Want
Yeah.
to put this one on the warrant?
I vote yes.
Yeah, Yeah.
So somebody want to do a motion?
Yeah, do the motion.
I'll make a motion that we put this article on the warrant.
Okay, seconded by
I'll second it.
Norman. Further discussion? If we can get this proposal done for our next meeting, then we can schedule a public hearing based upon the updated section of the bylaw. We will have our public hearing in April sometime. Beginning of April. Okay, any other discussion? Okay, I vote yes. Norman?
I vote yes.
Jeff?
I vote yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Christine?
Yes.
And Roger?
Yes.
Took care of that one. One step, one done. Go ahead. Go ahead, Tony. Next.
All right. And the next one is falls under site plan review. This is relative to exempt uses. What are exempt uses? So as we talked about at the last meeting, but just to recap, places of childcare, educational, charter schools, for example, places of worship fall under state law under 40A. They fall under what's called exempt uses. And what that boils down to is that there's really a limited amount of scope of review that cities and towns can perform when looking at their applications. So all this is doing is further amending our chapter on site plan review to add the criteria of review for exempt uses. And the criteria is what's been spelt out through through statute and just through cases in the past. And scope of review is limited to, pardon me, I'm just going to read this real quick, the bulk and height of any proposed structure and accessory structure, adequacy of open space, the building coverage on the site, yard sizes, setbacks, and lot areas. B, the physical layout of the structure, driveways, parking areas, utilities, and other infrastructure. And C, adequacy of the arrangement of parking, pickup, loading areas. Although that may sound repetitive with parking, but I'll strike that reference. But drop-off pickup is certainly something that that's important to look at, whether it be childcare, schools, or places of worship as well. And note that the planning board may impose any such conditions, limitations, safeguards as it deems appropriate to protect the interests of and consistent with the objectives of the Oxford zoning bylaw. We highlight the application process, which in essence, the mechanics is the same type of site plan review application with less review, less requirement of filing. We're going to be focused on those three areas as I just spoke about. With all the findings are relative to the three areas of scope. And prior to issuance of building occupancy permit, construction, extension, addition, establishment, or change may not commence, and no building permit, occupancy permit may be issued until the approval has been granted by the planning board. And then pretty much the same, I've tried to be consistent here with respect to waivers, but there's a waiver provision in there just as a placeholder to allow some flexibility if we need it, particularly noted where such technical and or submittal requirements are not appropriate or relevant to the project. And the very last section is that there shall be a fee in accordance with the planning board fee schedule. So this is, some communities will call this like a site plan, a light site plan review, Dover amendment, where Dover is where the first case came to be in the town of Dover relative to these exempt uses. There is no issues pending at this time. Just it is nowadays it's common to have this spelt out for exempt uses, just to give some clarity for us, for the applicants, and so on.
Rich, if I may.
Yeah.
So Tony, is there any way that we can put that must conform to the architectural design of the existing neighborhood or area?
That's tricky. That's a really good question.
I know. And
yeah.
My fear would be that we're going to put on a neon orange building in the middle of town because we can.
Yeah. So that's a tricky one. I tell you what, as part of this process, I will be sharing this with our outside counsel, KP. well, whether it's the Village Business District or hotels or cluster or this site plan. So I will ask them with respect to that. Architectural is actually the thing that got some communities in some hot water. Height of a church steeple, let's say, right? Certain things maybe in the statues and items as such. But I will ask, definitely will ask the question. And as a theme of tonight, this is in essence a placeholder. We could make further edits as allowed, but happy to follow up on that.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Well, you guys feel that this could get into the May, or you want to hold off until October?
Well, as far as the downtown area goes and architecture, Jeff and Tony, we have a bylaw that we passed a couple town meetings ago where any new construction, the facade of the building and the landscaping has to be approved by the planning board.
But
I think one of the things we've asked Tony to work on is put together some kind of a list suggesting what materials we're looking for, what types of landscaping we're looking for. So when someone comes in, they know ahead of time what we're looking for. So
I think
I don't know, Tony, if that would cover Jeff's concern about the downtown area, where we already have a bylaw that says, you know, their facade has to be approved by the town.
I think the Dover amendment supersedes that, though.
That's my question.
Yeah, and that's my understanding too, that the Dover amendment would supersede that also. But certainly happy to ask the legal folks on that. But that has been the history, at least on Dover uses. The architectural facade sometimes, signage still has to meet the dimensional standards. Just so we know that. But for example, colors, perhaps there's red and white color on a sign. And in some communities, they'll have sign ordinances that say in downtown, it can only be black and gold and black and silver. And those would be in conflict with Dover. At least that's been my understanding. But as I said before, happy to follow up. I don't.
I mean, if you think we're spinning our wheels, there's no reason why not to put it on the warrant. But if you think we have a chance, like you said, you've always stated that other towns have come into trouble when they've tried to, enforce, the architectural structure of the building. But
yeah, and I could, if the board wishes, I mean, I can still have this ready for the spring town meeting.
What we found, Jeff, during the master plan input, when we looked at this, is we found that having a list of materials that you would like people to use, if they know ahead of time, they don't usually have a problem on trying to meet that criteria. So I think that's why we want to get the list together of what we want, and then they can come in and they can design their building. Now, it's an issue where, like McDonald's, their building is their calling card.
Right, yeah.
Okay, but remember, those types of businesses aren't allowed in that area. Again, I know it's not the Dover.
Yeah.
But I just think it's a way of letting people know what we'd like to see in the center of town. And like I say, we found that most people will go along with it. It might not be exactly what we want, but it'll be close to what we want. What we don't want is another Cumberland Farms in the center of town.
Right.
That's pretty much what we are.
Walgreens coming in and putting a big green building in the middle of town.
Absolutely, absolutely. But again, that's not the Dover amendment, so we can take care of that. I mean, we've had one Dover amendment, if you want to call that, project in the center of town, and they actually kept the character of the building.
We got lucky.
Yeah, we did. We did get lucky, but they actually improved the building and made it look better. So they're not all bad.
No, not at all. Not at all. I will say one of the other things that we definitely look at too, in my past experience has been, so childcare and charter schools, for example, really important to get a firm grasp of the drop-off area, location, impact that may have on the neighborhood, right? Especially when you have adjacent, perhaps the public schools nearby also. That's always been an issue. And so thankfully we are allowed to look at parking and drop off as well. So.
Well, I think since you have to go to, you're gonna have discussions with town council, everything else. I don't think this one would be get ready in time for us to get it together and have a public hearing and have it ready for the warrant. I would just as soon push this one off until October and do all the due diligence homework on it. You can put something in there about, you know, the exterior
Yeah, I mean,
stuff on there.
it's
reference
almost
it.
there when you put the physical layout. It's almost, it's almost there already. When just that section B, the physical layout and structure of the structure is close to what we're looking for. But
Big problem putting this off, Tony, for now, 'cause we don't have any major things coming through. Have you seen that in tech review?
No, as I mentioned in the beginning, there's no, this is not critical path, if you will. I just wanted to bring to the board's attention. So no.
You are. This is something we've never addressed before. And the last one we came in, like Norman said, worked out for the better.
Mhm.
Okay. All we really dealt with was stormwater and a budding neighbor. Everything else seemed to be okay. But yeah, the more things we can document that we want them to address for us is better. I just want to make sure it's right. That's all.
I would be okay waiting till October.
Okay. Don't have to worry about that one, Mary, right now. Then we'll keep working on it.
Okay.
Okay, Tony, next.
All right. This one's a little bit, well, I shouldn't say it's more tricky, but there's more comments on here, so I'll do my best. Hotels, no. The cluster zoning, cluster development zoning. So CMRPC, as I understand, and Mary, please correct me if I'm wrong, but as I recall, CMRPC maybe 2 years ago or so took a look at our cluster zoning ordinance as related to low impact design. And within there, you'll see some of the track changes that were proposed by CMRPC are in the blue relative to low impact design. I didn't have any concerns with respect to that. I did make some changes in here, and this is a working draft, right? Again, for the board's consideration, which keeping in a pattern to the other items that presented tonight, adding a new section 9, to allow for waivers if the board sees fit, same mechanics, same process, so that all waiver requests be voted on at a public hearing of the project, requiring a majority vote in the entire board, that the waiver would not adversely affect public safety and will equally or better serve the purposes of the bylaw and town master plan. There are some smaller changes throughout the document. Starting under purpose, adding the word permanent prior to preservation, and adding the following line towards the end: establish or enhance wildlife corridors by connecting open spaces, comma, and striking out under special circumstances and just leaving it as and encourage the creation of affordable housing units. Section 2 under general provisions, the second line leading into the third, you'll see stricken out. A cluster development shall mean a single family residential development, that stays in which the house lots are clustered together into one or more groups, and then each group made up of as many as 6 lots, or if we feel comfortable, 6 house lots, either way. 5 or 6, just 6.
So yeah, up to 6, right? Okay.
Yes.
No, I hear you.
2.4, all land not used for building lots shall be placed in permanent open space in accordance with, and I would have to double check on this, in accordance with the section of this bylaw by not less than 30% of the total parcel area. Section 3, added 3.7 and 3.8. Each structure shall be integrated into the existing landscape on the property so as to minimize its visual impact through use of vegetative and structural screening, landscaping, grading, and placement on or into the surface of the lot. 3.8, lots shall be laid out and designed to the greatest extent feasible to preserve, protect historic and archaeological sites, farmland, wooded stream corridors, forested areas, and large trees, scenic views, particularly as seen from the public roads, ridge lines, and hilltops. Additional in section 5, adding a sentence after at the end of 5.1, at least 70% of common open land shall be retained in contiguous areas unless otherwise approved by the planning board. Also within that section 5.5, the planning board may permit up to 3% of the open space area to be paved or built upon for structures accessory to the dedicated use of open space. Example, pedestrian walks, bicycle paths, playgrounds, farm-related structures. Section 6, and as I said, the comments in blue came from our partners at CMRPC when they're looking at this through low impact designs. 6.1, it looks like they changed the wording to read as follows: all land not devoted to building, lots, roads, and other development shall be permanently protected as common open space for recreation, conservation, forestry, or agricultural uses which preserve the land in essentially its natural condition by the following methods. And so it's 6.11, the land shall be owned by a community association and a permanent conservation easement or deed restriction may be conveyed to the town with town approval or to a nonprofit trust or conservation organization whose principal purpose is to conserve farmland or open space. Striking out the language, which we had very similar language in the past. My only comment to this is that under common open land ownership, I've noticed in other communities, and I no means looked at a lot of examples, but the handful of examples I looked at, they all had similar language again to the same effect. And what is that? That land owned by a community association and a permanent conservation deed restriction must be conveyed to the town with the town approval or to a nonprofit trust or conservation organization.
Tony, if we don't have a conservation or trust, which we don't,
Yeah.
it would go to the town, right? That would be the only other choice.
That's how I read it. Yeah, that's how I read it. Now we may have one in the future.
Yeah.
Right. So we may.
There's the Charlton Land Trust, there's the Dudley Land Trust, and they've helped in parts before.
Yes. 6.1.2, simply adding in here. So MGL 61A relates to farmland, right? MGL 61B relates to agricultural. We have both types in town. So making reference to 61A or 61B. And so just for clarity, however, if the parcel is subject to 61A, which is the agricultural designation, or 61B, recreational designation, the owners are not, or the owner is not required to convey the part of their property that is to become permanent agricultural space, open space, provided that they convey to the town. That's the same language as we've had in the past. I just added 61B, which is the other provision relative to recreational open space. And recreational is not to be thinking of necessarily parkland per se, but under that chapter 61, there's those two designations, that one is for farmland, one is for recreational. So I made a note of that in there. Section 7, community association, in the blue, just added that shall be recorded at the Worcester County Registry of Deeds. 8.0, stormwater. Planning board shall encourage the use of non-structural stormwater management techniques and other drainage systems that reduce impervious surfaces and enable infiltration where appropriate to the maximum extent practical. And 2 is stormwater management system serving the cluster subdivision may be located within the required common open space surface systems such as retention, detention ponds shall not qualify towards the minimum open space requirement. Let us see. And then the last section is 9, which I started, which I read first, relative to waivers, which is the same language as we used in village business, for example. So it's 2 pieces here. One is the waiver that we added in there and just some small additions I added in red. The blue edits came from CMRPC, which I don't know if they presented, and pardon me, I apologize if they have already presented this back in 2018 or 2019 when they last worked on it. But I thought instead of reinventing the wheel, perhaps capture this as an opportunity to include it if there is no concerns. So
You got me, Tony.
all.
I don't remember them coming in front of us with that one. Mary, did they?
I don't
Yeah, they
believe
did,
so.
Rich, but I don't think we didn't do anything with it. They did come to us. They gave us a presentation. It was some young person that I think it was their first presentation. And I do remember it did a nice job, but I really don't think we reacted on it. That's my memory.
Okay.
Which I'll go first if you don't mind. I got a couple of things.
I got
My first question, Tony, is this refers only to single family homes. What about duplexes? What if we have a developer that comes in and wants to do a duplex type thing? Would this still fall under this cluster development?
So when I was looking at this, in one draft, I was thinking single family duplexes and other type of residential structures. And then I was wondering if there would be enough teeth in simply enforcing the waiver so as it's not so scriptive.
Okay.
That's not necessarily, I don't feel strongly either way. How's that? It does reference single family. We could certainly add duplexes. My rationale was thinking that the waiver may even cover that.
Okay. The other thing is, and you brought up a good point about who's going to own or be responsible for this open space land.
yeah, maintaining it.
And we have to be very careful because there's some land out there that's not very good.
Yep.
Okay, it's got pollutants on it.
Yeah.
And I know years ago, the town worked out good for me, but the town took over the dam at Sakarapa. And guess what? The dam failed and the town had to pay for fixing it. So, and again, I don't know if we again, a lot of these developments have a condo association. I don't know if we put it in their hands. So it's out of the, again, just a little more thought on that. That's all. That's my only concern.
Yeah.
The other thing let's face it, we're talking about one of the first ones is the Ashford Drive. And I think one of the things we talked to the developer about is keeping that as far from the residential area, like Ashworth Drive, and keeping it closer to Route 20. Because it's already developed, it's closer to the road, and maybe getting the open space up towards Ashworth, which would have not a major effect on that area. At least that would be the intent. And they're certainly willing to look at that. So that's why I threw in the duplex thing. If you feel that the waiver will take care of that, which I think is terrific. I like that on some of these bylaws, you're giving us a little bit of flexibility. And if you think that's good enough, then that's fine for me.
If I may, on section 6, with respect to your comment as far as conveyed to town, I mean, frankly, I didn't see any red flags on the old language that we had. It seems, and please correct me if I'm wrong, it seems it's worked, it's functioned in the past. So perhaps we don't strike out the old language that we had and keep it and just not accept the additional language that was suggested by CMRPC. I don't see a fatal flaw there, you know.
I'm all set, Rich. Thank you.
Well, I don't know if we should get hung up with single family homes because I mean, the multifamily development is a residential district. And if you go down to in the general provisions, it says it's applicable in any residential district. So
Okay.
I've already got one townhouse style property with 3 units attached. And I don't know if these guys around here are going to want to put in more of those. So you're talking 3 units per building. So
Okay.
I don't know if we'd have a leg to stand on there. So, but like Norman says, you got the waiver in there that the planning board could see through that. It's not for just single families, and you can put duplexes, you can put 3 units, you know.
Yeah,
That's my 2 cents on that one.
and again, going back to that 61, the common ownership of the land, as long, again, if there's a neighborhood association, I guess it all depends on what type of, development is going in there and what they would do with that land. I mean, I agree. I'd be afraid that the town would take ownership of it, and heaven forbid somebody gets hurt, because it was a sinkhole or a terrible area or something, again, it's a slippery slope to go down
Yeah.
there.
Most of the people going into that open land are going to be the people within the
In the community.
subdivision.
Yeah.
My opinion is their associations should own the open space.
And it must be maintained too, if it's,
With access to anybody in town. If you want to say that, I don't know.
yeah,
If you don't want to say that, that's fine too. I guess the point is we don't want them to come back and want to rebuild on this stuff.
yes, well,
Taking that whole parcel of land,
Right.
whatever we agree, that's it. You can't build any more units on that property.
right.
Yep.
Gonna be permanently preserved too, but it's gonna be. I think that would go under whoever's living in that community would have to be accountable for it, I guess.
Well, it seems to me that something eminent's going to happen with clustered development.
Yeah.
Based upon Norman's experience on the technical review board.
Right.
So I'd say we should push through this, Tony, into the
Yeah.
warrant myself. That's my opinion. Want to
Yeah.
make a motion to that effect, Norman?
I think that's a good idea because we'll have something, and
Yeah, that's right.
when anybody comes, we've got some leeway too, which is what we don't
That's
have.
right. It's not used that often, but you're talking one big project now that could happen. So let's get this information out there so that they base their designs upon it, so to speak. Okay. You want to make a motion, Norman, to put this on the
Yeah, I make a motion that we put this new bylaw regarding cluster development on the spring town meeting to get the town's blessing on this.
Okay, is there a second?
Second it.
I'll
Second.
second that. Oh,
Okay. Roger seconded it.
that's fine.
All those voting in favor? I say aye, yes. Norman says yes. Jeff,
Says yes.
Roger,
Aye.
Craig? You're muted, but I saw the lips move, so. Okay, and Christine?
Yes.
Yes, okay, carried unanimously. Okay. Tony, next.
And the last one for tonight is relative to hotels, hotels, motels, and country inns, simply adding them under our use table for light industrial and industrial, and by adding them, that they be allowed by special permit with site plan review. May recall in our conversation last week, looking at different parcels throughout the community, that there may be some potential opportunity. Certainly, we all know the circumstances these days with that industry, and frankly with all industries, but I do see this though in the long term as a potential. Thinking about, for example, Exit 5, Depot Road, large industrial area there, some pockets along Route 20, and obviously down by IPG where there's light industrial. The economics may not work in every parcel, right? These parcels may not have, they don't, some have sewers, some do not. But simply didn't feel it was right to do it as of right. I think we'd still want some control, some review, I should say, with respect to site plan, given that they would be zoned industrial areas. It would also be interesting to see, too, what may transform in our industrial parks. As I'm sure we've all have noticed in our travels, not uncommon to see a hotel at the entrance of an industrial park, right? So this is a simple change in the use table, and long-term, I think it's gonna be a great way to promote this type of use, promote that industry. So that's all.
Can I have slot machines, Tony?
Video poker.
Casinos or anything like that?
No comment on that right now.
Very good, right.
I think you gotta do a little more research.
I have no problem with this one.
I'll make a motion.
I'll make a motion that we put this on the warrant article.
The May town meeting
May.
warrant. Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
And by Christine, she got it in. There you go.
Yay.
Further discussion? There being none? I vote yes. Norman?
I vote yes.
Jeff?
I vote yes.
Roger?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
And Christine?
Yes.
Okay, carried unanimously.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may, I just have a few other items, just some quick updates.
Yep.
So I do have, and I will send it via email to everyone. They are the Route 20, pardon me, the Route 20 Charlton Oxford revised plans for the Route 20 project. It's scheduled. I received updated copy from Mass DOT a week or two ago, and so I'd be happy to share with everyone. And the project is right now it's estimated at 74 million. It is going to go to bid. It's at 25% right now of design. It is expected to go out to bid in the spring/summer of 2022. I will send it over, and to take note, this is helpful as we're looking, of course, different developments along 20, Eastland and the others. So happy to share. The last one we had in the office was from 2017, which was the environmental impact report, which was very helpful for me when I came in to look at and to get a better understanding. They are showing several 3 points of U-turns along the corridor, making improvements, widening some parts of it, and obviously barrier improvements, shared lane as well, and two bridge. It's part of a bridge. There's two bridge projects here, I should say, French River Bridge, and also the other bridge down in Charlton. So I'll send this over for informational. With respect to Eastland as well, it was a month ago that the developer came before us. I did request for an update last week from the team with respect to their project. I have not received anything just yet, but I do expect to receive something this week in writing from them, and I will happy to forward to the board with respect to where they stand on their project. A couple of things I will be going through and looking at, not only on their update, but also reminding them with respect to project timeline, review of the conditions, sit down with them and further review conditions, and if there's any need for revisions on their plans, that they should, as we mentioned 2 meetings ago, that they must come before the board with those for the board's consideration and approval. Last meeting, I briefly mentioned 5G small cell facilities, 5G wireless facilities. These are small antennas, small structures that are becoming more and more common throughout the state, region nowadays, and in consultation with, prepared a draft relative to the siting and the design of these structures, these small cell, not cell towers per se, pardon me, but these, they almost look like smaller cylinder boxes that would be on top of utility poles, some light poles, right? And we're working on a policy, and the policy itself would be under the jurisdiction of the Board of Selectmen, DPW, as part of grants of utility locations and so on. Originally, some cities and towns have done by ordinance or by law. KP has advised us that we should probably first start with having a policy in place, whereas FCC, there's a lot of federal oversight regarding this. And originally back in, let's say, 2017, 2018, cities like Boston and later Worcester and so on were really honing in on the design standards and coming up with citing criteria that I guess FCC came down on them and came down on municipalities, really limiting their jurisdiction and how much they can charge as well in annual fees. So we want to take the best of the best, I guess, that's out there. And so KP will assist us with that. It's not an item that would necessarily come before the board, but certainly happy to share any drafts that we have. Again, it would be a policy under the umbrella of the Board of Selectmen and DPW. Another thing relative to stormwater, mentioned last meeting, Ty and Bond is working on revising our stormwater ordinance. Of particular interest, looking at the single family requirements. It was noted when I spoke to Jared, our requirements actually exceed MS4, not MS14, MS4 permits. Looking at it to allow some more flexibility for single family homes, but yet still achieve stormwater mitigation and still achieve consistency with state and federal requirements. In essence, as we move forward in the coming weeks and so, our DPW director would like to come before the board to fill you in with respect to our stormwater management regulations and the general MS4 permit process and so on. And then lastly, too, I've got a very good update as well. And I'm very excited about this as we think, and as we talked about, has been mentioned in the past, our downtown sewer feasibility study will be starting soon until that there's a consultant on board. And I will have more information as DPW moves forward. It'll be a tremendous asset, right, to have that critical infrastructure in Oxford Center. And it would be, if that does get approved and sewer does come in, it would be really interesting to take and we should take a good hard look at our zoning within the center to see how perhaps we can maximize redevelopment opportunities too in the future. But first is first is the sewer feasibility study, which we'll see develop throughout this year. And I will certainly keep you folks posted, but vice versa too. I'm sure that there will be also presentations before the public, and also would like to, when the time is right, to also provide our board with a presentation as well. So with that, Mr. Chairman, that's all that I have for right now.
Rich, through you,
Okay.
can I ask Tony a question?
Yeah.
It's good to hear that we're doing a sewer feasibility study, but we're going to do that in conjunction with redoing Main Street, right? In other
Yes.
words, we've got, because here's the issue. If the big question we're going to get is, if we get these plans from Main Street, we get the money and everything, people are going to ask, and rightfully so, what happens in 5 years if we get money to do sewer? So I think it's important that we do the research now and see if we're, at the very least, we could put the infrastructure in that section of Main Street. And I hope that's part of the thing that they're looking at. They might say, well, we don't have the money to hook it up, but as part of the downtown rehab, we will put the infrastructure there for sewage. So that way there, we won't have to dig up Main Street again. And as I told you before at the master plan, they've been talking about sewage in the center of town for over 50 years. I remember them talking about it when I was in high school, which was over 10 years ago. And really, so we don't want to have this other project put on hold because of that, because there are other issues. But it would be great if we could at least do our research and put all our effort into making this happen at the same time. So I feel like I'm excited about the things that are going on, and I think we can do a lot of the stuff and have very little cost to the taxpayers. Thank you, Rich.
Okay. Tony, our next meeting looks awful light. So if you want Jared to come before us and talk about stormwater management, I have no problem with that at all.
Sure, I will follow up with them tomorrow.
All right. Sounds good. Anyone else have anything?
Chris is here tonight, so I'm not saying anything.
I know. I'm like making sure no one's saying anything. So I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
I will second
Okay.
that motion.
Okay, and Norman seconded the motion to adjourn. I vote aye. Norman,
I vote yes.
Jeff voted yes.
Yeah.
Roger,
Aye.
Greg, thumbs up, yes. Okay, and Christine?
I vote yes. Thank
Okay,
you all.
carried unanimously. Thanks for
Good night,
coming.
everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Good night.